We do! Oh!
Nope.
The other one.
The
It looks very
other
similar.
D&D thing we're doing.
We have yet further bumpers.
They should be labeled more differently on my side. Sorry.
No, that's
That's
okay.
my bad.
I just enjoy watching that one again.
It's very funny.
It's a good
Yo.
one. I feel like now we've built up the other bumper.
Yeah, right?
Kathleen's pitch for that bumper was, we'll just take the D&B one, but make it bus posty.
You remember that 2 a.m. message I sent Kathleen the other day that she alluded to?
Yes.
That's what goes
Okay.
on in my brain at 2 a.m.
Oh no, we don't have this. It's fine.
All right, so we got some questions here that were polled. In terms of setting story mechanics, etc., what should you have prepared before you start a campaign? Possible addition, doing so with little time / mental spoons.
What do they mean by story mechanics?
I mean,
Like setting story mechanics, mechanics.
Oh!
I would say that, at least for me, that would depend heavily on who my players are and what their preferred modes of interacting are. I have friends who are like, we are going to hyperfixate on an NPC that you've thrown in randomly.
Yep.
So, knowing those people around, I would prepare that kind of content for them. Lay some cunning traps, and other places are going to be wildly depopulated.
Yep.
Knowing your
Gloriously
players,
depopulated.
honestly, is going to be a recurring theme for a lot of my answers, and giving them the tools that they want or that they make them feel rewarded.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah. Checking in with your players is super, super important. Yeah. I can't disagree with what Cameron said at all.
Yep.
Yeah, I support that 100%.
In terms of doing so when you don't necessarily have a lot of the mental energy to do it, I generally find like a good combat encounter, at least for my players, will take up most of a session.
Yeah,
So it's like, if I've got a session, I can do like, okay, I'm going to throw these 3 Driders at them and let them deal with that. And that will be a good way to get through to another day when I hopefully have more time to focus on like, oh, I'm going to write out these 3 characters and their complicated backstories and their all of these interactions that we're planning to have.
although I have had that. A friend of mine told me an anecdote about their DM doing exactly that, where their party was attacked by 2 wyverns.
Yep.
So his barbarian, who was monkey gripping great axes in each hand,
Yep.
raged and went crit, killing one wyvern, and then crit, killing the other one. And the DM was like, that was all I had.
No.
So beware RNG.
Oh,
Yep.
wow.
Having session 0 is good. Yeah, like get to know your players a little bit better. Have open, honest communication. Check in often.
Yeah.
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 That's really good. And the other thing that I do quite often is that I will schedule break times in my campaign. If I sort of know that there's a natural stopping point coming up, my current campaign is very like anthology-like when they're sort of running through like mini campaigns. So I will say like, okay, after this campaign is done, which is going to be in a few weeks, we're going to take like 2 sessions off and give me a chance to like write some more stuff for the next one.
Yep.
And so I sort of build up a bit of a backlog ahead of time, so I'm doing less prep week to week. Is sort of how I do it. And then it also gives me time to like, I'm not hyper focused on like making sure I'm getting each one prepped. I can focus on other stuff and sort of recharge those creative batteries.
Yeah. Also, keep in mind with all of these advice, we are 4 different people that run 4 different styles and 4 different games. So, with all of this advice, nobody is an expert. It's just this is the best way we found to do these things. Salt and pepper to your taste.
Yeah.
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 I don't think that you need to get too bogged down in like backstory. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you could just be like, all right, here you are. Here's some options. Pick one, and then we'll just sort of see where it takes us. And you know, maybe we end up there, and then we can come back around to the other thing that we didn't get to later. You know, you can always meet somebody's cousin down the line.
Exactly.
Who's got
Yeah.
a job for you.
Yeah.
Like there is the delicate GM art of generally not a huge fan of his films, but Christopher Nolan's Inception. The metaphor he used there of I want you to draw a maze in 1 minute that will take me longer than 1 minute to solve is a valuable skill for any DM.
Yes. Yep. So we got the next question here. How does one keep a social game on topic when people end up chatting about day-to-day life? I've generally found the best way to do that is to schedule my sessions with that extra time. So if I want a game to run from like 7 till 9, I'll tell people to show up at 6. So that, first of all, some people are going to be late, so they'll filter in. But other people, as they're just there and waiting, having snacks, they can chat about stuff. They can catch up. They can go through all of that social stuff. Because that's part of why you do tabletop role-playing games, is that you want to, you know, spend time with your friends. So just building in social time to your scheduled session allows you to sort of bypass, like you get all of that out of your system, and then when it actually comes time to play the game, your players are much more likely to be focused and engaged in what's going on at the table, because they're not like, I haven't seen this person in a week and I want to hear how their new job is or whatever.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, that's a really good advice. I like that a lot. Scheduling social time, because fundamentally we're talking about social experience here.
Yeah.
And people are going to want to use that organically.
Yep.
And nobody wants to be constantly acting like a grade school teacher
Yeah.
or being treated like a third grader.
Yeah.
Constantly being reminded to stay on task. It's no fun for anyone. So scheduling recess, I think.
Yeah, and having breaks in, but like if you're noticing that like people are starting to get off topic, that's maybe a good time to say, hey, let's all take a 15-minute break.
Yep.
Go to the bathroom, have some snacks, do all of that, and then go back into playing.
Yeah, because like
Yeah.
you can't fight it,
No,
right?
no, like that's the point where you're like, come on, play the game.
Well, also, I feel that people have like about an hour and a half limit to how long they can concentrate on any topic
Agreed.
before they just need to have a brain break.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Because we do them on stream, we have breaks once an hour, and it's actually really helpful.
Yes.
Yes.
Agreed.
Yep. Okay.
Oh, I was just making noises while I was adjusting my shirt.
Okay,
Don't
great.
mind me.
Here's another one. What's a piece of lesser-known / indie obscure TTRPG content that you've run, read, or referenced and would recommend for others? Jacob?
I don't want to take up this time. If anybody else
Please-
wants to go first, please go
Please
ahead.
do.
Okay. Alice is Missing. You should look this game up right now. It can be played. It is generally played without dice and without your voice. It is a game that you play on Discord just with texts. The entire game plays by texting. There are a bunch of different Alices. They all go missing, and it's you turning over cards for an hour while texting everybody else and not talking and playing the game. I have played it once. I shall play it again, and it was such an intense, amazing, wonderful experience. I cannot recommend it enough. I believe it is. Yep, there it is. Okay, good. Renegade Game Studios or Hunter's Entertainment. Alice is Missing is fantastic. Spencer, I want to say, Brain is doing the thing again. I want to say Spencer is part of the name of the person that made it, but I cannot recommend this enough. Holy bus. Is it good? But you need to pick the right people to play this game with. Or at the very least, have a very, you got to have a come to busness beforehand to make sure that everybody's on the same page. Because it can be a wigwam in a teepee. Very intense. I'm done. I cannot recommend this enough. It was so good. I can't wait to play it again.
Awesome.
Oh my goodness.
Cool.
Oh, I thought about it for days. I went to sleep that night listening to the soundtrack. Like, because they actually released a soundtrack to the game that you can run during the game, has a counter, because everybody flips over cards at certain times, and then the narrative just goes, it's so good. Yeah.
Okay, that
I can't.
That's great.
Yeah.
I did not have much for this question, so
Sorry.
yeah. No, I've only played kind of very very mainstream games. Mm-hmm. So that
Yeah.
sounds fascinating.
It is so good.
All right.
cool.
Yeah. Yep. You can play it with Roll20. They got a whole setup for it. Oh my goodness. Yes.
Here's another one. How do you remember / memorize things you have improvised, nouns, voices, motivations, for when players inevitably bring them up later?
I have to write them down. I have tried, like, just keeping it upstairs, and it's, I can't.
Yeah.
You're looking at week intervals between things, or month-long intervals between things of details that you have had to improvise on the spot, names that you've had to make up. You can't do it reliably. Well, maybe some people can. I'm sure many people can. I cannot. I have to take notes.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with being a DM and having to take copious notes.
I will often take like I will just say, it's like, give me 1 minute to catch up on my notes here, and write down things like that I've just like ripped off the top of my head. The other thing I do is I also tell my players to take notes. My game, they have a shared note document where they
Yes.
are expected to write down notes and things like that. And so I will go back and reference that as well,
Yep.
to be like, okay, what did I miss in my notes? And also it helps me get a better sense of what they have sort of like latched onto. And so it's like, oh, they made a note of this, meaning I should make sure that that is something that I'm
Right.
thinking about. They're probably going to come back to that.
That's really good.
Yeah.
I think that's very smart. I recommend you obviously take notes. Here's the notes I took for the campaign for the session I just ran. They're literally 2 pages long, and that was for like an hour of stuff. But I recommend that you split up your notes as following: places, things, people, organizations. Like, give yourself the Coles note, especially if you're going for something complicated, and you can keep adding to those descriptions as you come back to things, but just like some kind of like quick index for your own campaign. It's like, which NPC is that? Okay, oh, that's, this guy, this is what he wants, this is where we last saw him, this is how I do his voice. Like,
Yep.
that kind of stuff is like really helpful, and it's not just buried in the middle of like then they did this, then they did this, then they did this kind of thing.
Take advantage of how your brain works and use that to the best of your ability. Notes is great. So my memory, just with the way that my brain is wired, I can remember almost every detail from nearly every game I've ever written. I could probably tell you things about your character from Now to Drop the Drink that you may have forgotten, because maybe not. That's gonna be a fun time. But I do take notes, and I also ask. Again, this is a session 0 thing. Everybody is responsible for taking notes. It's not players show up and they get to sit down and just be like, "Oh, you did all the work, and what is this, and what is this, and brr, brr, brr." Everybody should take their own notes, and then usually as part of the wind down, I usually do like, what are some favorite things? What are some stuff that you wanted to come back to? Like, get those from your players after, and then write that down right there at the end. Make it part of your outro, essentially. Yep. Yeah, that's what I'd recommend.
All right.
You could also record your games if your memory isn't so good. Just like, obviously tell everybody you're recording it. You could just take an audio recording is all you really need.
Yeah.
And then you can listen to it later and transcribe them if you're like that. If you're like me and you're not the kind of person who can take detailed notes while also thinking of things.
Yeah.
Typing and speaking use the same synapses for some people.
Yeah.
And you can't do them separately.
Yeah. Yeah. I've also done in-character recaps at the beginning of sessions for people.
I don't always do it, but I will sometimes be like, I will tell my players to tell me what happened last time.
Yeah, there you go. Yep, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then it's like, yes, I remember that. And if you recall, and then you can throw out extra details that you remember.
Yeah.
And then build it back up, and then you've all got a place to go from there.
Mm-hmm.
And if all of you forgot one detail, it no longer exists.
Yep. This is true. That's the other thing. You don't have to remember everything. If your players come back to it, it's perfectly okay to be like, who was that again? You're not
Yeah.
you're playing a game. You're here to have fun with your friends.
Yep.
None of you are perfect.
Yes.
I have players who, for the life of them, cannot remember a character's name. They will never remember the NPC's name. That's okay. I don't expect them to.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
and I would hope that they would have that same lenience for me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Don't
Yeah.
be the DM who's like, oh, you don't remember this NPC? Well, then they're not going to help you, and you're screwed. It's like, just to have somebody be like, psst.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think this will be our last question. Reminder: we have a giveaway going right now for Jacob's time.
Hi.
It's
Me, Jacob.
Jacob is having a giveaway where he is going to either run a session for you, or do some voice acting work, or voice acting coaching, or something else.
Yep.
And so that would be that's for $8.53 or multiples thereof. As SL did, they donated $51.18. That's probably quite a lot. That's several entries. So you can do that, and you got 12 minutes. And this is going to be the last question for us.
Okay.
How do you encourage new players to play in character when they have no improv/acting inclinations, and to develop their characters and their personal goals?
Go ahead.
One, you should have a session 0, so you're not just starting with like, I don't know, what do you want your character to be?
Yeah,
like, have
yes.
them think about it a bit. And
Yeah,
also,
yes.
like, just don't expect their characters to be good and have any goals right away. Their goal
yes.
can be like, I need to get to the city. And then they can find something interesting to do when they get there. If they're just running an
Yes.
errand. Maybe the first little bit of campaign is just go to the city and back, and then you get to know your characters, and then you go do something cool, right?
Yeah.
You know, you're not on a time crunch.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you are, but like, just I don't like it's playing D&D and like just surrendering yourself to a different personality is very hard because you have to figure out what this personality is,
Yes.
and you need to get a feel for it, which it takes me quite a while. And I'll like, I kind of throw spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks and see what feels right for the character. And then they'll come to that eventually, and some people get to it faster than others. But as long as you're not like they're not. they'll
Use your character voice.
Yeah, don't
Yeah.
like make them nervous. That'll put them off.
Yeah.
Like, I've had good experiences prompting people.
Yeah.
Not necessarily putting them on the spot, but asking them, what does your character think about this? And like, take your time. We can come back to you.
Yeah.
But like, what are you thinking right now? While this is going on.
Yeah.
Yep.
If they are a brand new player and they're just sort of playing a role-playing game for the first time, it's perfectly okay if their first character is them but an elf.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
absolutely.
And becoming a good role player is a thing that you learn, and it takes time, and it's you want to sort of like push them a little bit each way, giving them, like Cameron said, prompts, asking them, it's like, what is this? Like, for example, in the session we just ran, Kathleen was like, what is this thing that you just ate? And that's a great way to like get them to be in that mindset of improvisation.
Yeah.
It's something small and inconsequential like that. Like, it didn't matter what I said. I could have said anything. I could have said it was a cookie, and that would be okay.
So, I have two things for this. One, playing a role and being an actor are not the same thing. You do not have to be a good actor to play a role-playing game. Also, you don't have to do any acting to play a character well. all you need is a bit of an imagination. Because you don't have to necessarily inhabit your character. There are definitely ways around this, especially to ease somebody in as, like, to be in character. They can just describe what the character is doing, through making rolls and things like that. You know, how is your character getting from, you know, how is, let's say, Thistlemar, how is Thistlemar Orc Stomper getting from point A to point B? Oh, he's gonna walk. You can start asking questions of what their character is doing so that that person doesn't feel like they have to inhabit it the entire time. They're still controlling the character, they're still in that role, but you don't necessarily have to have in-character back and forth of an argument between an innkeeper and Orc Stomper. You can just make a roll and then ask them, describe how that conversation goes. You don't actually have to have that conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
Because everything that is occurring mechanically in a game
Yes.
is de facto role playing.
Correct.
If your rogue never, like if you're new to playing a rogue
Yes.
and don't check for traps, that can just be a personality thing.
Yes.
Right? You could be a cavalier person or a careless person or a trusting person. There are many different ways of interpreting your player's actions.
Yes.
And
Yep.
reminding them that what you do in game is de facto role playing.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And that's what it is. And don't compare yourself to anybody, even if you enjoy watching them. Even though you are doing the same things, the people that you watch on the TVs, you just get to do it in your own way because they're bringing all of their talent and experience and skill to what they're doing. Doesn't mean you have to do the same thing. Don't compare yourself to others. Just be you. Have fun with the game. And anything that keeps you from having fun with the game should be eliminated and talked about and set up outside of the boundary of those games.
Another thing that comes from theater, actually, is silence from a
Yes.
character or inaction, right?
Yeah.
Inaction
Frequently in plays, you will have characters on stage who don't have a speaking role in the scene and don't have stage direction.
Yep.
And it is up to the actor and the director, but it's largely up to the actor to decide what that character is doing in the scene
Yep.
when there is no direction for them.
Yes. Yep.
That's a fascinating space to be in.
Yeah. Yep. And I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was going to say, and DMs, give your ask questions. What does your character feel about this? How do you want to do this? Not necessarily what do they say in this situation, just a little bit of that person's internal life. Get somebody to think about it. That's the way to help somebody to understand what their character is doing. Because the player is not the character. But the player controls the character and should experience things through them, and that's the way to kind of get them, or that's a way, I should say, to get them into where you want them to be.
Yeah. I was going to say, also, if you do have a new player and they're scared of role-playing, sometimes people who are new to D&D have heard about these like things called TPKs and merciless DMs and stuff like that. And if you just want your character to, if you just want your players to like relax and actually embrace their characters, some people may be wary of that if they think that there's something bad is going to happen to their character.
Yeah.
I think it's perfectly fine to tell somebody who's playing for the first time, I am not going to hurt your character.
Yeah.
Your character may be in danger, but your character will be fine, so you can feel free to get attached to them.
That's
Yeah.
often something people will ask in a session 0 is, are you okay with character death? And if people are not, it's like, no, I want to play this character. That's fine. You can find a way to work around that, or like maybe have it be something that is very, very difficult but can happen, and not like, oh, well, you rolled a 3 on your dex save, so goodbye.
So you fall
Yeah.
down a ledge.
I mean, with experienced characters or experienced players and experienced DMs, you know, I love giving someone I've been playing games with for 20 years exactly what they want in the worst way possible.
Yep.
Because I've had tremendous experiences with like old friend DMs giving me what I want. It's been amazing.
Yeah.
With new players, yeah.
Is my favorite phrase.
With new players, be gentle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Give them positive experiences before you ask them to, like, yeah,
Dang it.
before you
Oh.
make the big asks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Make sure that they feel safe Make sure that they have the positive experiences first,
Yeah.
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 right?
They'll wanna-
Before the complicated positive experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah. If
Got
you-
it. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say if you get to play an elf with pink hair, and then you get to shoot a big bad guy and recover a gem,
Yep.
and you're the hero of your village,
Yep.
you're gonna feel great, and you're gonna want to either do something else with that pink-haired elf, or maybe play another campaign, and then eventually maybe you play another character who doesn't survive, but you've had good experiences and you've built up a level of trust with the game, and you know things will be okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And
Start on easy mode.
yeah, don't be afraid to ask for things.
Yeah.
Start with small asks before you try to handle a big ask.
I always ask people when they create characters, well, what does your character want? What would make them happy?
Yeah.
What would be a good emotional journey for this character?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is like a big question to ask, but I don't know. Some people have some things that they want to do.
Yeah.
Going into Heat Death, first question I asked my players, are you okay with character death? And everyone is like, wouldn't be here if I wasn't. But it was still an important question to go through with everyone.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. There you go.